So Transnet says it's managed to fully restore operations at its ports following a massive cyber attack last month. But experts are warning that other state-owned companies could be targeted next, with such attacks on the rise globally. Let's talk about this further now. Technology expert and Safe Cyber Life CEO Linda Khumalo, who's joining us live tonight. Linda, very good evening to you. Thank you for being on the show tonight. Let's start first with the issue of Transnet. We know that they now say that operations are fully restored, but we don't know the extent of the incursion in full, do we?
No, we don't. And these are the types of information that are usually not disclosed for obvious reasons, because some of them might actually make it possible for them to be attacked again. So it's the type of confidentiality that we usually respect of them.
So given that there's a degree of confidentiality, yes, we, the public, may not know that fully, but I'd imagine that in the broader SOE setup and perhaps in the broader public sector, there'd have to be a sharing of that information to make sure that other agencies are protected. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right. And I think this is where people usually talk about prevention is better than cure. I mean, in this issue of Transnet right now, we're talking about cure. But moving forward, all the other SOEs, I mean, as in the cybersecurity industry, especially with what we're doing in Safe Cyber Life, we always say prevention is better than cure. So that all of the others are now supposed to be looking into their operations, especially now that people are working from home. You know, the working from home has a danger because all of a sudden the tech support is no longer the professional technical support at the office. It's a 16-year-old or a 13-year-old at home who's helping you to set up your Wi-Fi and all those things. That's where the vulnerability comes in on how people behave at home. And a lot of other people are so ignorant about cybersecurity. In fact, the country is one of the, you know, been beating this drum and saying, wake up, people, wake up. Cybersecurity is an important thing that people need to be thinking about. And I think in times like this, it's a painful thing to say, but we told you so. So if you think about it, a lot of people right now are working from home, and working from home means that you have to be connected to the internet using your phone at home and using your Wi-Fi at home or using whatever connectivity. That's where the risk comes in.
And of course, the working from home was an emergency situation brought on by the pandemic. But generally, is there any telling of just how porous one's cybersecurity protections are before a hit, a matter of being proactive rather than reactive?
It takes a particular training and takes a particular empowerment of the workforce. So as an example, you would expect all the Transnet employees or all the SOEs employees to be given some empowerment of knowing how to behave online so that when they see indications and they will know, oh, something is wrong, then they can be able to send a note to say something is wrong with my device. But by the time they see that indication, sometimes it's too late because cyber criminals are very clever people, are people who know how to plant a software that can react at a particular time when they activate it. I mean, the typical attacks they are called denial of services or DOS, similar to what we've had with Transnet, where something can be plugged in to go and disrupt services. But by the time people wake up, it's too late. That's why we're saying prevention is better than cure, so that people can know how to prevent those attacks rather than to deal with it when it's already happened.
But what then is the duty of the employer to employees, because we are taking these devices into our homes and being exposed to some level of personal risk, even though it's a work device?
It's training you. I mean, similar to how you train yourself around security, you know how to protect yourself against attacks, you know how to protect your car. Similar with your digital devices, you need to know how to protect yourself online. You need to know what not to click to, and it's not a simple awareness. People talk about it as an awareness program. It's not an awareness program. It's empowerment of employees, where employees have to be trained over time. They can be given skills because attacks also change over time. So it's not something that happens overnight. And in most cases, companies focus on saying, how do you train the IT department? They equip the IT department and they forget that the human factor, the guy who's doing finance or the person who's doing procurement, those are the people who become risks because they get attacked and they become an input. They become the weak link or the easy door for the cyber criminals to come into organizations. So it's empowerment of employees is the critical thing that has to be done.
So Linda, much of what we've seen over the last, I would say, we've seen more of an increase in prevalence, or at least an increase in reporting in the last 5 years or so in ransomware attacks, right? Where people basically take a cyber system hostage in exchange for cash. In South Africa, there was a case a few years ago with the city of Joburg where the people were demanding Bitcoin as a payment. How open are governments and SOEs when that happens about whether they pay or not? Because I would assume for this to continue happening would mean that the attackers, the hackers, are making money.
Yeah, and the most painful thing is we are not closing those holes. And I mean, if you talk to a government employee, you say, give me your private email address, they give you a Gmail address. And sometimes you look at it and you think, do they understand some of the risks that they have by using the open source email services? And some of them, you realize how they behave. You see that critical infrastructure is not protected because people who are supposed to know these things do not know them. And that's the critical weakness that we have in our country. So I think the immediate thing that needs to be done now is to make sure that people are empowered and we can close these holes that are out there.
So we can go to the Consumer Commission when we're hard done by a service provider or company where we bought goods or acquired services. Where do you go when you've been the victim of a cyber attack? Is it basically on the shoulders of the entity to find its way through it?
First of all, you need to understand that you're a victim of a cyber attack. And I think that's the critical thing. So when you think of all of those ransomware as an example, when you get a ransomware happening in your device, you will know that your device has been attacked. But in our country right now, there is a new act that has come on board, the Cybersecurity and Cybercrime Act, which protects you as an individual. So people need to familiarize themselves with that. But there's also the POPI Act, which also protects. It also talks to the information security on how people have to understand the responsibilities they have of their information. So if you get attacked because someone has leaked your information, there is usually a liability that you can claim against that person. But the critical thing is, how do you prove that this is the person who has actually led to the breach of your system? So again, it's the critical aspect of knowing what is happening in your system. If you are an employer or if you're an employee, knowing what your responsibilities are, and you should know what you're liable to, what you're not liable to as an employee. So it's a very new environment that we're in, that it's all about empowerment of people.
All right, Linda Khumalo from Safe Cyber Life. Good to speak to you on News at Prime. Thank you.